Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be taking cuttings and showing how to do different cuttings from different plants around the garden. Starting off with the hydrangeas here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some bits around the garden, take them up to the back garden and then show you how to do them. This is a hydrangea, very blue because it's in acid soil. Usually this is quite a pink one, but some of the pieces we'll take are these strips here. I'll cut a large piece out. This isn't going to be the size of the cutting, but it's just to show you that these are non-flowering shoots, so they're the easiest ones to take. So I take those out, and then as I go around, I'll pick. This one is an unusual one. It is a hydrangea. It's oak-leaved hydrangea, and very similar way to take cuttings. I'll just take this whole piece off here, and then I shall show you how to take the cuttings off that. Let me get it around the other side. Here we have a lovely lavender. They're all different styles, different colours. I don't know what variety it is, but this is the one where I shall be taking cuttings from. I have already taken a piece of this, which I shall show you later on. I'll be doing hebes. Again, ideal place to take them. That sort of shoot there. I'll cut it right down and I shall show you how to do it a little later on. Here we are, ready to do all the cuttings. I've got quite a mixture of cuttings. First thing we need is to have the potting compost or potting mix that you have. You can either use this one, which is a mixture of perlite and compost, already potting compost, or it's not, because of the garden centres being closed and it's not always available. I'm now trying, it's a grit. It's builder's grit, very, very small. But what I'm trying is mixing this with some soil. Wash it out first, and then it's quite damp, so when you mix it then with your compost, it'll make the compost damp. You shouldn't have the compost too wet, because that will help make the cuttings rot off. You need a decent sized pot. What I've done is I line these with newspaper inside. It stops the compost slipping out at the bottom, but it also helps conserve the water inside so it doesn't drain away so easily. It doesn't matter what size pot you use, it will depend on how many cuttings you're taking. So we'll start with some of the, just before we start, I thought I'd just show you these are some of the fuchsias I have in the garden, and I'll show you how to take cuttings, but there's quite a variety. I don't know the names of them because I buy them and then obviously forget what they're called. Types of cuttings, there are different types. There's nodal, internodal, heel cuttings and hardwood cuttings. I'll try and show you the difference now. This is what is called a heel cutting, where you just pull that down like that and you pull it away from the main plant and you have a little lip there. You can then trim that little bit like that and you pop that into compost, as many as you like around a pot. So that would be a heel cutting. If it was a nodal cutting, it's there where the leaves join there. You cut it under there and then you just pull those leaves off there. So that's a nodal. And then we have internodal. It's all very complicated, but you can look these up on the web and decide which ones you want to use. And then internodal is where you have the leaves. You've got the leaves there and then there, but actually you cut in between them. It's not so easy with this one, but you cut in between. If you have a longer length, you'd cut in between. So those are what you call heel cuttings, nodal and internodal. But generally what I do is whatever plant I've got, I'll cut them and try them anyway, whichever we want to use. I will use those as cuttings. This one is the perennial wallflower, Erysimum. This one's yellow, but there's a bulb's mauve, which is a purpley lilac-y colour, which flowers most of the summer and is really difficult to keep its nice shape because it doesn't stop flowering. But if you can trim it, that would be ideal to do that. So we'll go on to some of the cuttings themselves now. These are the hydrangeas, and they are slightly different to some of the other plants. this is a normal hydrangea, it's a blue one I have here. So I cut the long piece off, but I could probably get 2 cuttings from that. But what I do is take across there where the 2 leaves join, which is a nodal cutting, like that. Then you peel these off, like that one, and I've shown this before, and you can then trim the top of them, which helps to stop them drying out, because the larger the leaf, the quicker they lose moisture. Now that is the correct cutting for hydrangeas, this particular type of hydrangea. But if you did what they call in the middle, internodal, you'll see that it's hollow in there, and it will not root. So if you have a cutting like that, which is hollow, it won't root. You have to, with these, you have to cut them at the bottom there, so that you've got a thick joint there. I'll plant all these later, but the process is the same. You fill your pot, you put them around the pot, and then cover them with polythene or plastic afterwards. That's the hydrangeas. This one then is a different, it is a hydrangea, it's oak-leafed hydrangea, and because the stems are quite different, this one I would use it as a heel cutting. So I pull off there like that, take these off the bottom, and do exactly the same thing that I did. And what I forgot to say was, if you pinch the tips out, and you do that with all your cuttings, if you pinch the tips out, it stops just growing up the top. But that one again, then you would put around the pot just like you would with that one there. So it's you pull them down, and then it's easier to do with that one. Then we have the hebes, which are about the easiest of all to do. This one doesn't matter what, if I planted that it would probably be fine, but it's a bit too big for cutting. So what I shall do is I shall look between the leaves there. I will cut below a leaf joint like that, pull the bottom leaves off, and then you can pull a little more off, bury it in some soil, and then you've got your cutting for that one there. So that's an easy one to do. Some of the hardwood, the Philadelphus I showed you earlier, which is that one there, Bellitwell, that isn't any good for taking cuttings. You can try it, and what you could do is to take the flower heads off there. I might need to cut that one. Cut that one off. And you see you have a little piece there which is actually attached to this branch here. If you do the same, pull that one down, you have a little heel. Do the same thing, pull all the leaves off and bury it up to about there. It's not always guaranteed that these will work, but rather than waste them, it's worth trying it. But generally you would take a non-flowering shoot like that one there, pinch the tip out, and if you look to where the wood, that's very soft there, you look to where it sort of starts to be a little bit firmer, and that's what they call semi-ripe. So then you would cut again just below the leaf joint there, pull the bottom leaves or cut them off, whichever way you prefer. Again, you've got that, pinch the tip out. You can, they're not very large leaves, so you can leave that on, and again you put them around the pot like you do with all the rest of them. And then I think this one here, which is the roses, it's a bit early for taking roses, but this is a climbing rose. So what you do is you take across the bottom there, pull the bottom leaves off and the spikes like that, and you take about that length, cut it at an angle like I showed you before there. It helps you to know which end is the right end, because the angle is always the top and the flat is always the bottom. And then you put that into a gritty compost in the shade. You don't need to cover it with a polythene bag. Bury it to about there, and hopefully by the autumn you will have some shoots on that. Fuchsias, I did say I'd show you how to take fuchsia cuttings. This is a cutting that was taken probably late last year, and as you can see it's from quite a nice plant. You can take these from anywhere really. You can do as I've done before. You can do them as a, it's not quite a heel, but pull them in from in there, and take that, take the bottom leaves off again, and then pinch the tips out. Again, put them there. Or you can actually do it in the middle. There. That one's got 2 shoots on it, and then you'll just bear it to the top there. The more you do, the more success you will have. So just try different ways of doing it. Geraniums, slightly different, because you should find a non-flowering shoot, but if you can't, just look for a decent, you'll find this one here. So you can see that one there, it's quite a decent shoot. So cut it just below there, and this one goes against all the things you're normally told to do. If you leave that cutting out for about a day or a couple of hours, not in the sun, in a shady spot, the bottom dries. So when you plant it in the old compost, it then begins to root in a couple of hours. You do not cover these with a polythene bag because they rot. So you just put it into compost, into a shady spot, shady area, and that's your geranium cuttings done. And I think the last one for today is a skimmer, and these are quite easy really. As you can see, you've got, this is where the flower was earlier on in the season. So now if I want to take cuttings, all I do is just peel them down like that, and then you've got your cutting. You don't need to trim them at all. Put them in a pot, very shady spot, and with all of them you put them in a shady spot. Then if you want, when you're planting them into your compost, so when you've filled your pot with compost, you've got your plants in it, and this is made from, it was from a barbecue, the little charcoal barbecues you buy, the disposable ones. It comes as a little tray to stand on, but what I've discovered is if you fold it like that, you put it inside the pot like that, and it makes a great stand for your plastic bag to go over. With that, you've got a mini greenhouse, and you don't have to worry about it going down onto the plants. So hopefully that will be helpful.